So now that we had a diagnosis for Lyric, it was actually a lot easier on us because we knew where we were going. I think being in a standstill for like 3 weeks of just not knowing and going through all the ups and downs in the NICU were really hard. But once we had a diagnosis, we knew that our baby was going to be coming home with us. We knew we had a long road ahead for the rest of his life, but at least
we had a direction.
We had a direction. And then also, shortly after the diagnosis, Lyric started to make a turnaround and improvements. He had his first poop the day before Thanksgiving, which was super exciting. You don't even understand. People were dancing. They were poop dancing. The doctors, the nurses. Lyric was like a little celebrity in the NICU. We couldn't walk down the hallways of Sacred Heart without people saying, "Is that your beautiful baby in the NICU?" Because Dave was so tall, so people would be like, "The father of that beautiful baby. He's like 7 feet." So we'd be walking down the halls and we'd have doctors and nurses stop us. We would actually come into the NICU, and every time everyone was crowded around Lyric. He was, they would say, "Well, he just knows how special and beautiful he is, so he demands all of our attention." I'm like, oh gosh, this kid, he was already winning hearts. It was incredible. So when he had his first bowel movement, we've been praying for poop. I've never actually prayed for poop harder and longer than we did every day. We had prayer groups going that were praying for poop to get Lyric to poop because we really needed that so that he could start eating and so that we could, have a road home. So when he finally pooped and we all did our poop dance and we all celebrated, he was able to start eating again. So I remember his first bottle was on Thanksgiving Day. And, of course, they could only give him a tiny bit of milk at a time just to make sure that he would process it well and everything. But it was like very special to us because here we're out of our own home. We're spending Thanksgiving at the Ronald McDonald House, which was wonderful. Volunteers came and cooked a great dinner for us. Our kids came, so we had our own little table there in the corner, and we celebrated Thanksgiving. And then we went to the hospital, and the kids, any kid over 18 could be in the NICU. So Kalina wasn't allowed to visit her brother, but we had a nurse that told us if you come at this certain time and you just kind of walk in with her. And so we're like, oh, okay. So we actually did that. And then there was another nurse that kind of looked at her and was like, she's not 18. But they let the kids all meet their brother, which was, that was a miracle in itself to us. Just letting them, because they had been waiting weeks to see this little baby, and having them be able to see Lyric and hold him meant a lot. And so right after Thanksgiving, we were then on the road to going home. The doctor started to tell us, hey, if he continues with his feeds, and as long as he doesn't have any problems with his feeds, you guys should be able to go home the next week. And it was like, that was life changing right there. That I think the stress we had in the NICU, I can't even explain how just getting that date to go home made the difference and change in me, because the whole time we were at the Ronald McDonald House, even though we were doing nothing other than taking care of our baby and holding him, because that's all we could really do, hold him and change him, we were exhausted. I would look at David and I would say, "You look so tired." And he's like, "So do you." And we were just mentally and emotionally exhausted. But when we got that go home date, everything changed. And suddenly we were in the house full of these people that were also going through really hard times. And we were able to extend ourselves more because we weren't so focused on Lyric and if we were ever going to be able to go home. And so we were able to relax and start talking to people more and helping people that were going through struggles, different struggles than us, kids with cancer, people that ended up also losing their children. But we got, I don't know, I guess at that point it was just like, okay, we get to bring our baby home. And so that fear of not being able to go home, which was there the whole time, and the fear of not ever having anything normal, it was suddenly gone. And so we got to go home. I think it was a month and a day after he was born. We got to finally come back to Moscow. And of course, we had all these appointments, like a week away to go back up to Spokane, where we're going to go meet with the team. And they're like, it's going to be like a 5-hour long appointment, just to get ready for our new road with cystic fibrosis. And we didn't know what to expect. That was probably the worst. Not knowing was the worst feeling, because you can imagine the worst of everything and everything that you've read. And if we would have known then how well Lyric was going to do and how much of a fighter he was going to be and how much of a joy he was going to be, it would have been really different. We also, one thing we didn't hit on is when we got the diagnosis, it was very hard for us to tell people. It took about 4 days to announce on social media, because we had this dread of telling people that our son had cystic fibrosis, and knowing that people were going to react with, oh, I'm so sorry, and say those kind of things to us. And David and I didn't feel sorry. We were just so elated that we were going to bring our boy home. We were so happy that he was, to us, he was perfect. Even though he had cystic fibrosis, we didn't look at it like, oh gosh, we got this kid with an illness. We thought he was amazing. We looked at him and we thought he was the perfect gift to us. So in announcing it, we were really afraid of the reactions. And of course, we did get a lot of those reactions, like, poor baby, oh, I'm so sorry for you guys. Dave had a lot of people come up to him and, instead of saying congratulations, it was like, oh man, I am so sorry. And Dave was the best. I wasn't very good, because I would get emotional and upset when people would do that, because this baby was everything we dreamed and prayed for. He was perfect for us. And I didn't know how to explain that to people when telling them the diagnosis, because people didn't understand that. They were just like, oh, I'm so sorry for you. I'm like, no, this is my dream come true. He's perfect.
Lyric is here for a reason. He surpassed two death sentences. He's got his angels. We have our faith. Everything is good. You don't need to be sorry. We're not sorry.
And Dave was just great. When people would say something to him, he's like, well, we're not sorry, so you don't need to be. And he was like really calm about it, where I was like, don't say that. You can't say that. He was really calm about it. And we would tell people, like, please don't feel bad for him. He's not a poor baby. We don't want to raise him thinking he's a poor baby. We didn't want that stigma attached to cystic fibrosis. When we got the diagnosis, we immediately, after talking to Dr. McCarthy, and he told us, it has to do with the way that you react, the way that you teach him about it. And so we were like, well, we're going to just treat him like a normal kid. He doesn't know anything different. So does he know that it's going to be 5 times harder for him to accomplish tasks as other people? No, because he's always lived with this. So let's just push him. Let's help him to grow. Let's give him the love that, the reason we conceived and wanted this baby was so we could raise a baby in love, and to see what it would be like if we gave a child so much love. You hear what happens when a child doesn't have good love and doesn't have, the stability of a mom and dad and a marriage and a happy relationship. So we were like, if we have this wonderful thing between us and we can share it with a child, imagine the kind of child we can get out of this. And so that's the way we were looking at it the whole time, even through the diagnosis. And it was never, the diagnosis honestly wasn't devastating, because like I said, we were just so happy that we got to bring our baby home. We saw much worse diagnoses where people didn't get to bring their children home. So for us, it was like, he was our miracle. He was everything. So when we finally, got to bring him home and everything, like I said, and we were going up for our first appointment with Dr. McCarthy, we were handed this huge notebook. And I mean huge. Not just one, too. There was like multiples of them. And it was really overwhelming, because we really had we didn't have any reason to medically know anything about cystic fibrosis. So everything was new. It was, and they were always trying to not overwhelm us. They're like, listen, we're going to tell you one thing at a time, because it was just so much to take in. And when I say so much, cystic fibrosis affects every part of the body, really, from the sinuses to the bones, to the lungs, to the pancreas, the stomach, the heart. I mean, it can affect everything. And so trying to take all that in at one time is just way too much. And so they, gave it to us in little bits, and they gave us this huge notebook. And in this notebook came the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. So whenever, someone's newly diagnosed, whether it's a child or an adult, because now they have mandatory cystic fibrosis testing for all newborns, but that didn't start till like 2000 and, what was it?
I think it was 2010.
Yeah. So before that, sometimes people would go undiagnosed or misdiagnosed. We actually know someone who was misdiagnosed for 17 years of their life and were told that they had asthma, and it was actually cystic fibrosis. So no matter what age you are or when you're diagnosed, you get the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. And this foundation, and this is what we're doing the walk for, is amazing. They're like a tree, a solid tree, and it branches out to all these different divisions that can help you with jobs. Like if you're an adult and you have a compromised immune system, you need a job, they help you with that. If you need help getting your medications, because some people have insurance, some people don't. But when you have cystic fibrosis, a lot of insurance companies will not take you on. You're often on state insurance. there's just so much with cystic fibrosis. It's one of the most expensive diseases to live through, and it's consistent your whole life. It's expensive. And so the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation has all these different branches. One is called Compass. Compass is a place that you can call with anything. If you don't have food one month, if you are looking for a better care center and better doctors, if you want to be a part of trials and new drugs that are coming out there, if you can't afford your medications, it doesn't matter what your needs are, what your financial, where your finances are. They're just there to help you. Whether,
exactly like their name, they're
Yep.
a compass, and they point you in the direction
Yes.
that you need to go.
And I mean, they don't just say, okay, we'll give you $1,400. That, if you need help with like certain medications that aren't being covered with insurance, they say this is what you need to apply for. They have a legal team that is all free to you just to help you go through all this, because there's so much legally that sometimes when you apply for something you get denied, and they're there to make sure you don't get denied and to help you through all those things. And so for us, Compass became like this lifesaver, and so the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation became this lifesaver because we know we're not alone, and here they help you with absolutely anything. I can't even tell you how many people I know that call them for absolutely anything, and they're always there. So for us to give back to this foundation was very important, and to create kind of a legacy for Lyric in a way, something that he could look forward to every year, like where his community would come behind him and say, we know the battle you're facing. We're proud of you. We're here for you, and we're going to help, and we're going to give back, and we're going to give back to what you want to give back to. And of course, Lyric's not old enough to make that choice, but we made that choice because we want to give back to this foundation. They are the leaders in the research for a cure for cystic fibrosis. And after watching so many families lose their children, and I mean children, a lot of them don't make it till 18. There are people that live to their 30s and 40s, and even some that live to their 50s, but a lot don't. And we need a cure. And so in doing this walk for Lyric, it's saying, we want to walk with Lyric until CF stands for Cure Found. Well, that makes sense to us, and it's hard if it doesn't impact your life to go outside of yourself and say, well, I want to support this organization. But we hope in telling our story, it will really help people to want to go out and support this organization, because nobody should have to live knowing, that they might outlive their child, or most likely, not might, but will outlive their children. It's a very hard thing. The good thing about that is you appreciate everything. We celebrate every milestone. It's not just us. Anyone that has a child with a life-shortening or life-altering condition, you celebrate things you didn't before, and you appreciate everything. And so we just wanted to be able to show our appreciation and give back, and give Lyric something that he could have. And who knows, by the time he's 18, how much money we will have raised in his name for him to be proud of, and be able to kind of wear a badge of honor of, yes, I have cystic fibrosis, I'm a fighter, and we're all fighting in this together. And we all are, really. I mean, it's a lifelong thing.